And today we are going to talk about the Apostle Paul. That is summarized, we can say that he was a man of medium high society. He was very faithful to his principles. Is, if I may say so, the Catholic, the traditional religion of those times, for instance, was not the Catholic, but the traditional religion. He was calling the believers of sects, and Bishop Adriano will explain a little bit better. Paul had a touch of Jesus very strongly that appeared to him, and he changed. He was intelligent. There's a lot of people that when God appears, they don't change. These are really not intelligent people, because God appears to everybody, rich, poor, high society, no society at all, because for God nobody is important, everybody is important. We are all important. For instance, the king Nebuchadnezzar, he finally recognized that God existed, that he was the powerful. For instance, the Pharaoh, he didn't admit anything, and he lost everything. It was a disaster for the nation. And Paul, he was somebody with a lot of authority, but also him, when he was touched by God, when God appeared to him, he chose God. And I want to advise all of you and encourage you that to tell you that God is knocking at the door of your heart. So open the door so that God can enter your life and change your life for the better. So you that already are a believer, remember what I've been saying in these last days. You have a calling of God, because Jesus said, "Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to all creature." And Jesus said this to all the believers. And many believers on the face of the earth, they don't really have this revelation. But this is true. We were called to serve God. And those that serve God with a happy face every single day, they will be blessed in this time. The others will receive some breadcrumbs and leftovers. But those that decide to do their life, a life dedicated to help the others, to bring people to Jesus, and then, yes, these people will not only have a position, amazing position, when we go and live forever with God, they will be rewarded because of their service here on earth, but also in this planet. They will have protection like others don't have, and they will also have blessings like the others don't have. So serve God, have zeal serving. Don't be, for instance, when Jesus told to Apostle John to serve, to write the 7 letters for the churches of Asia. The church Laodicea, they thought they were rich, but they were lukewarm. They thought I have a house and a house. Well, righteousness is nothing. The true riches is how many people we can take to heaven. That's the only goal that Jesus wants. We are not taking anything else. And we are going to live for a short amount of time here. But remember, you that are a believer, it's better to serve God with zeal, thinking every single day in the people that are on their way to hell, paying attention to those that are suffering and crying, to give them Jesus and help them to overcome. You will be happy also in this planet. So let's listen to Bishop Adriano now. Yes, I want to put the story of Saul in this mission. So Paul is a wonderful example what is faithfulness and zeal, somebody that lives 100% focused, that believes that as a mission and wanted to help God. But as the apostle says so many times, Saul started very bad. Initially, he was called Saul. And Saul was a religious man from the traditional church he kept the tradition and the law like anybody else because he believed that doing that he was helping God. But actually what he did is started to persecute the Church of Christ. He participated in the death of some Christians, like for instance um, Stephen, like the martyr. And what did he have? Well, he had a religious upbringing because he and his father was from the class of the Pharisees. They were the ones that knew how to do all the rules. He studied in the best Jewish schools. He was a student of Gamaliel, the best student, best teacher of them all. So he had a good position in the traditional church. So what did he do in that time? He had letters from the administration of this church to kill the Christians. And to facilitate this, Paul also had from his upbringing, because of his father, the Roman citizenship. So he could use this influence to exert his zeal on the defense of the traditional religion, traditional church. So this is the zeal that he had, his total focus to help God. As Bishop Crystal was saying, he was very zealous, but he was completely wrong, because without knowing, he was persecuting and he was doing what was against God, thinking that it was pleasing God. He was actually going against God, killing Christians. He himself was one of those that was present in the death of Stephen, and he allowed him to be stoned to death. He was one of the servants of God, this martyr, after Jesus went to heaven, but he was stoned to death because of preaching of the gospel. And Saul, religious with his political influence and social influence, because he was from a high status in the society, he was from Tarsus, and there was the best university of the time where he studied. So, as the apostle said, he was not just a normal citizen. He had power and knowledge, and he used it to defend his church and his religion, doing, without knowing, what was bad against in the eyes of God. And so what I want to say, according to the story of Saul, is this characteristic. He was a zealous man, 100% focused on the mission that he believed that he was fulfilling, which was to help God, defend God, don't allow that nobody would mock God, because he called the true Christians, he called them a sect. And one day after he got one of those letters to incarcerate the Christians, he goes into Damascus, you can see in Acts 9, to take those Christians and take them to Jerusalem, where they be arrested and killed. So in this way, Saul had an encounter with God, and his life changed completely. He recognized Jesus as Lord and Savior, because he was in the desert and he listened to the voice saying, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" And he said, "Who are you, Lord?" And this is Saul recognizing that he was talking to somebody higher than him. So the first step that Saul did was to be baptized. And the second step, it says in Acts 9, verse 17, that as when he was baptized and came out to the street, the first thing he did was to preach the gospel. He went immediately to the synagogue to preach Jesus Christ. Let me tell you something, according to what you are saying. First, he had zeal, was zealous, but thinking that the way that he was walking, that's the right way. And a lot of people are walking in some type of paths, for instance, the Catholics, the Muslims, the Hindus, and so on. And they are honest and zealous, and they think that that is the way. So, amongst his logic, he was a person, an honest person. He was sincere. He was doing those things because he believed. Because there's a lot of people that say, I'm Catholic, but they don't go anywhere. I believe in God my own way. Well, a person like this is nothing, because he doesn't do anything. But not Paul, not Saul. He was mistaken, but he was doing the things he believed. But then God appeared to him, and I want to emphasize the following. God is going to appear to everybody, but he doesn't appear the same way. He appears however he wants to appear, because he is God. And there are many ways of God to appear to a person. It can be with such a dramatic touch like this one, that he saw the light, he heard a voice, but only him was able to hear the voice. Nobody else could hear. He fell under the power of God. And when he said that, no, I persecute that sect, and Jesus said, no, they are not sects, they are the ones that are right. He was, again, an honest man. He decided to change because he recognized in front of this word and this revelation that I was mistaken. So he was a wise and intelligent man. He changed. When a person, on the contrary, he thinks that knows everything, is arrogant. Well, I cannot change. Nobody's going to change me. He's not going to have a happy end. Because nobody knows everything. Nobody is the Almighty that knows everything. You know, every one of us are going to die and don't want to die. So we are not that powerful and not that big. So Paul, in the midst of so many wrong things that he did, he made available the letters for those believers to be arrested and killed. So he started really bad. But when he was confronted with God, when God appeared to him, he was intelligent, honest, he changed. And I want to encourage you also that you are, whatever way you are, ask God, what is the true way? I remember that I had a friend of mine that was Muslim. Without entering in much detail, I was an engineer in the company where we work. In the midst of the morning, we would go to the engineer room and have a coffee and speak a little bit. And once in a while, we talk about religion. So everybody had their own religion. So there's always discussion regarding this. And one day I almost got into a fisticuffs, but I asked God for forgiveness. Well, he said, you have the Bible and I have the Quran also, and whatever. But then I asked God for forgiveness, and I asked God to help me. How can I conquer people to Jesus? And Jesus said, give him seeds of salvation, which are verses of salvation. So what did I do? The next time that a discussion like this came, because one was in witchcraft, the other one was Catholic and went to the mass and followed the saints or whatever, there was all type of people. So when they shut up, I would say, I believe that Jesus is the truth, the way, and the life. I didn't have time to say anybody else, because they attacked, they contra-argumented, and when they stopped arguing, I would say, I believe that not in heaven, not on earth, there's another name where salvation can be only in Jesus. And they would started all again to argue. I gave them those verses, and I said, okay, let's see what's going to happen. One time, 1 month or two passed by, and again, in a discussion, this Muslim man, he said like this, I already told you, only Jesus is the truth, the way, and the life. And I was looking and I said, how can it be? A person that is so sincere as a Muslim person, as honest in his own beliefs, and all of a sudden was converted because God appeared to him through me, because I gave him the Bible verses. Maybe he asked God for help and said, oh, God, how is this? And God always answers. So we cannot forget the following, that God speaks to everybody. Nobody, when we are in heaven, can find an excuse and false, saying that I didn't know, nobody told me, God never spoke to me, appeared at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. So what we need to do is open our heart, allow Jesus to enter, and change the way for the true way, which is Jesus Christ. And this is what Paul did. And he did something for a Jew, which is almost a crime against the family, is that he changed his name. His change in his heart was so big that he changed his name from Saul to Paul. He rejected his family heritage in this earth and assumed a new identity and lived the rest of his life to fulfill the mission. And this is what we are talking about, somebody that embraces the mission and gave the life to preach the gospel. Let me tell you something. It's a very important fact, because there's a lot of people that when they are converted, they have a parent which has more money, that gets furious. And if you follow this church and this religion, you will lose your inheritance. I'm going to take you from the will and everything. They did the same to me also. And I thought, well, but do you think that I walk with God or whatever because of money? But there's people that think that money is more important than God, the everlasting life, or whatever. If somebody does this to you, have pity of this person, but follow God. Because that person, if that person gives you something, it's just breadcrumbs. That person is going to die like everybody. But God is going to give you everlasting life, and in this plan is going to give you what nobody else can do. So always put God in first place. Don't be deceived, don't be seduced by money or friendship or family or whatever. Actually, he that loves more father and mother than Jesus is not worthy of Jesus. And this is what Paul did. When Paul assumed that I am from Jesus, from now on I'm going to preach the gospel. So you can see in 1 Corinthians 9 from verse 16, I was Jew to conquer the Jews, I was Roman to conquer the Romans. I did everything that was up to me for the rest of my life to conquer the maximum people to Jesus. And we know the stories of Paul, the journeys that he did. There's an image, a map of Paul's travels. We can see the first, the second, and the third voyage of the Apostle Paul, and then the last one in yellow, which one? The one he made to Rome to be arrested and give testimony before the emperor. And you can see that in those times to travel, all this, it's something impressive. I've been here in Turkey. All this is Turkey now, most of it on the right side, where you see Lycia, Pamphylia, Cappadocia, Galatia, Phrygia, all those places now, not before. Now it's called Turkey. It's the nation of Turkey. On the left side, where you see Macedonia, Greece, Achaia, all that. Well, Macedonia was a nation, but all that is what we call now Greece. But we see that the Apostle Paul, can you imagine the following? If you go from Joppa, Jerusalem, or whatever, if you go from there up there to Philippi, Naples, Thessalonica, those are hours and hours in flight by plane that flies 900 kilometers an hour. Can you imagine how Paul traveled in the midst of thieves, robbers, in the midst of dangers during all these journeys, starving in the midst of storms, and that is one of the aspects that it's an example for us. He was arrested, bitten by snakes, he was sick a lot of times, and he said also, what is your doubt that I love God and I serve God? Who of you wants to go through everything that I've been going through? And he was talking to Timothy, one of the disciples that he do. Keep all this that I've teach you and be zealous. Don't despise your calling and the gifts. Keep your faith. And Paul was what the bishop said in the beginning. He was always careful with the gospel. Paul only taught about the gospel. There's not only one Paul in story, obviously. There are a lot of Pauls. Many of them don't work full-time, obviously, because to be a servant of God, it doesn't mean that I need to work full-time. Yes, even the couples that he conquered, businessmen, that had churches in there. And even Paul worked, he was building tents to have money for himself and also for the gospel. In those times, they didn't knew the laws that we know, the law of sowing and reaping, but that didn't stop him. And Paul did something. He was the pusher of making disciples of what Jesus said. And it was through the book to Ephesus, to the Ephesians. Paul not just preached the gospel, but he instituted the kingdom of God in the life of people. So he transformed cities like Ephesus, making everybody to leave idolatry and witchcraft. He was persecuted, yes. Tribulated, yes. But today, I've been traveled with the apostle in Greece also. Even today, the work of Paul is so strong and everybody respects it. Yes, me and Crystal, we've been to Greece and sometimes to Turkey. And at night, when I was going to pray and read the Bible in the morning, honestly, I was really impressed, because how can Paul travel so much? Those are amazing distances with cold, with heat waves and everything. He didn't just preach, he made disciples. He went to a city, preached, and then he prepared them as deacons, disciples, and then he left them manuals, which is the letters, and then he went to another city, and so on. So that work was in the hand of somebody. A few time ago, those are the traveling that he made, yes. So to be an apostle is somebody that has this calling. It's not just some title. It's to be bishop of bishops, if I may say so. And even today, in Greece, people have a tremendous respect to the Apostle Paul. They don't like to talk about it because this is something very intimate for them. But they have a mighty respect to all the apostles. They don't worship them like the Catholics, but they respect them. And they try to imitate their faith. And this is what we are lacking. Because many believers today, they imitate the world instead of imitate the heroes of faith. Hebrew 11. We should imitate the heroes of faith. So, we, our children and our sons and daughters should have icons. And those icons exist in Greece. For instance, the preachers there, they get married. I don't remember their names. Yeah, the Christian Orthodox, they dressed in black or whatever. When they go outside, everybody respect them. There's people in their normal lives, they get married, they have children or whatever, but they represent God. And this is what Apostle Paul did. And the Apostle Paul, I was in several places, when a person has more money, a little bit more money, they always put a chapel in so many places. If somebody wants to use it for a marriage or whatever, that is from God. It's not owned by the people that build it. For instance, Mykonos island, a very well known island regarding the tourism. It's the old part is very beautiful, very traditional. and it was very narrow roads and everything. So in the same street, at the end of the street, they had a bigger church, but throughout the street, they had many small chapels. There was houses before where people met to talk about the Bible. This is what we call now the home groups. That is where somebody was, a family that preached the gospel to conquer the people. So Paul was a very zealous man, a tremendous example for all of us. He never stopped at anything. They could throw anything at him, but he never flinched, never gave up. So when he finished, he said, well, I finished, I've overcame, I fought the good fight, I finished the race, I kept my faith. So for now on, the crown of justice is kept, and God is going to give it not just to me, but to everybody that love God. So somebody that started poorly, but had an encounter with God that changed completely his life, and he used that zeal, that character, his influence, everything they had learned to help the gospel. He has something very impressive, not much, not very normal. He wrote, or he told somebody to write the letters that are part of the Bible. Those are manuals until today, manuals for our lives. He didn't just preach, but he gave order. He instituted order, organization in the house of God. And when we go, for instance, in Ephesus, he was arrested there for preaching the gospel, for throwing down the images of the goddess Artemis, that in Portuguese is called Diana. He had no problem. He was never ashamed, and he was afraid of nobody. And he said, well, woe to me if I don't preach the gospel, because if I do it with joy, I will have reward. So it's not just he's doing because of doing, but he did it with gratitude, zeal, love, and not complaining despite the tribulation. He said, well, I will only do this if it is to do with all heart. Well, I have some appointments here. Well, some notes here I want to share with you. Sometimes there are Christians, servants, that have a wrong attitude regarding the gospel, regarding God, as believers, because they only think about rewards. They look if God needs to bless me. If God doesn't bless me, I'm not going to church. I don't need God for anything, and they want to live like the world. And so there are believers that don't want to live without the privileges, without God having to give them one more house, one more car, or whatever. I don't know what gospel is this one, because these are people, they don't want to depend of God. They want to depend of the employer, well, maybe they need to have a syndicate of the people that work for God. Whereas if people, when see other people being blessed, instead of being happy because others are blessed, they say, well, and why not me? And this is the opposite of the gospel. This is the doctrine of the prosperity. This is something false. People are just going after God because of revenue, because of God giving them things, and don't care about God. And the contrary is a person that is zealous. And I will never forget where I came from. I will never forget the day that God saved me and already did these miracles in my life. If God allows me, this is what happened with Paul. Paul was in places and during seasons that he had very little to eat. Yeah, he said that to Timothy, just to reinforce what the apostle said. It says, 1 Timothy, we bring nothing to this world, and nothing we can take out of this world, but we should be glad with what we have, because those that want to be rich fall into temptation. So follow those things, follow justice, patience, and everything. I want to say everything this to God. Every zealous should want to be prosperous, to have money, properties, but not to build your own kingdom. As to put that money and those properties serving God, because there is where you're going to be rich. You can see it in Apocalypse. That believer that only goes to church and thinks about money for themselves or this or that, he should read the story of the Apostle Paul. I remember once we were going from Brazil, Argentina, to Chile. I was tired, and I saw a lot of preachers, also Brazilian preachers, big. They didn't care about the other nations. I was saying to God, well, I'm in Europe. I have so many work to do. Why do you send me? Why you don't send them? I'm not complaining. I'm just talking to you. And God told me the following: because they don't want to serve, they want to be served. They are egoists. They are lukewarm. And God told me they are what is written here. Verse 15. I know your works, that you are neither cold nor hot. I could wish you were cold or hot. So then, because you are lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will vomit you from my mouth. Well, going out of my house and my nation to go and preach? No. I need to start everything again. And Jesus said, you are miserable. You are poor, blind and naked. But a lot of believers and preachers say, no, I am so blessed. How can you be blessed? I remember once a big preacher that came to our faith conventions. He saw the size of our church and everything. He told me, why don't you stop and just stay here in Portugal? You are already big. Why do you give so much work? I look at him and say, are you kidding with me? He said, why? Why do you do this? Why? I say, don't you understand? Don't you understand that how can I stop working for God? And he was ashamed. And another one would say like this: we have a plane, it's been a lot of years, and obviously a lot of people that airplane is a waste or whatever, but without entering in details, we use the plane to go and preach the gospel further, faster. And a great servant of God in Africa, he came and visited me. And at the time we were living where we were living, and we didn't have much furniture, nor sofa, nor curtains. And he was kind of surprised, and he said, so you have a airplane, and you have a room like this, such a simple house. What's your problem? I said, no, do you think I want the money for me, for my house, for my car or whatever? I want for the airplane, so we can go further and faster and preach the gospel to more nations. And one day he invited me. I went and I preached the gospel. So he had this such a big house or whatever. But okay, that's why Paul is an example, because he didn't care about those things for anything. Me and Crystal, we had a great teacher, which was one of the heroes of faith, called Lester Sumrall. So he advised me so many times, and he told me the following, because he told me also that I needed an airplane because of a lot of things. And I told him, are you kidding me? I didn't have faith, not even to fly in first class. How can I have an airplane? But he told me the following. Jorge, yes, it has been some years ago, yeah. You need to defend yourself so that the devil don't attack you. If you go just anyhow, it happened this, because they were tired, it was the wife, the marriage, the church, everything went bankrupt. And then he told me the following: everything that has to do with money and material things that had the purpose to increase the gospel, it comes from God. Everything that is to increase my comfort, my possession, or my status, it's completely wrong. And then I understood. And when I look at the Apostle Paul, I don't know if it is Paul that said, I know how to have plenty and have nothing. I prefer to have plenty, but, and you also, you've been with me in not much. And Peter also. We were in one certain place in Africa, and we had to sleep in tents, and he slept in a car, and we went. We didn't have money, and they gave us some food. We had to pray because we didn't know what type of food was that, and he said, "Apostle, I need to talk to you." And I said, "Well, Peter is going away." And finally said, "You know, Apostle, this is one of the happiest days in my life." And I thought, well, is this guy going mad? And he explained me, no, I'm happy because when we are in a place where God wants, it's not the money, it's not the food, it's not anything, it's the joy that God gives us. And the Apostle Paul, if you read his life, if you read all this, the story of Paul, for sure you are going to change. I didn't finish what I was saying. When I was in one of our planes, I was going to Chile. I was sad and I was tired. Why didn't the others went? Had to be me. We were robbed, deceived there. And he said, "Well, I called you because you go, you obey." And so I was very pleased because God trusts me for the life of these people. I even forgot what I was about to say, but well, it said that God told you that sent you because asked the others to go and nobody would go. So there's a lot of people. And this is when the apostle said, "Well, I will never complain. Even if I cry or whatever, don't pay attention. It's just because I'm tired, but I will not complain because it is an honor to serve God." And sometimes we go and a lot of people convert. Others, almost nobody. Some other times, just one or two people convert and we don't even know. And sometimes I get sad. But we should never be like that because we give the word, we spread the word, and God is the one that does the work. Yeah, but when God went to Macedonia, only a couple gave his life to Christ. He even thought, well, this is not the plan of God. But from then on, it was the beginning of an amazing ministry. What do you want to say? I want to cite a verse that the apostle just said. Paul was receiving an offer from the church of Philippians, and he said, "I know to have in abundance and not much. In everything I have, I'm instructed to have abundance and to go through needs. But I can all things in Christ that strengthens me." But you did well. You did well to participate in this affliction. So it was the only church that in the beginning of the gospel, when I came from Macedonia, nobody talked to me about giving and receiving, only you. That's why then Paul said, "My God will fulfill your needs according to his riches and glory." So Philippians did well because they were going to be blessed now. Okay, and I was talking to God because God says that, what is the passage that say? No, in the Old Testament, God says, argue your case with me. I was talking to God. I'm so tired, sad, people robbed me and whatever. And God said the following. Go and read the story of Paul, and then we'll talk again. I remember it as if it was today. I was sitting in the chair on the left side, looking at the beautiful mountains, Chilean mountains, and I heard a voice here. read the story of Paul and then talk to me. I started reading the story of Paul, and while I was in the in the middle of the story of Paul, I said, "Well, I will never complain again." Yes, because you are seated in the airplane with a cell phone, computer. So, yeah, Paul had nothing of what we have. I will never complain. Yeah. I have such a respect for the Apostle Paul. You heard about me because I want to go and meet better. And we didn't go because of the pandemics or whatever. This time I was going with the team to film the places where it was born in Tars and the churches over there. Why? Because when we go in a place like this and we start looking at the Bible and reading the Bible, what they do, what happened, we develop a fear of God. We want to go further and faster. And here I am with a cell phone, with a car, computer, tablet, everything. Written Bible. I can send an email, WhatsApp to my friends or whatever. How can somebody, I wish that one day we can have a journey in one of these big boats, 2,000-3,000 people that I'm going to go there. We are going to visit all those places where the Apostle Paul was, where John was arrested in the island of Patmos in Greece. For sure, God is going to change the person in such a way that she will never be the same. That person is going to be an amazing evangelist. Every day he's going to talk about Jesus. You understand? And this is the purpose of my mini message, is that you desire deeply to be a servant of God, because you only have this life to give to Jesus. You have no life, no other life. So enjoy this honor that God gives you to be a servant of God. And when God said, "Go into all the world, preach the gospel to all creatures," you don't need to go and get your luggage. We are united. In Mana, we are a family. We are in so many places. We are doing the same thing. I remember when I was just a deacon, I was a brother, a normal brother in the church. I was in the church, and I was seeing people convert, and I was seeing miracles, real miracles. And in that time that God appeared to me, it was like this: the reward that this pastor is going to receive, it's not bigger than yours, because he that brought the people to salvation here to the church, it was you. They that brought the lost, the ones that are sick to the church, is you. So the reward is the same. This sister that gave testimony, she will give the same reward that I will receive, because we are a team. Nobody can do everything all alone. I am the leader of Mana, and whatever. What can I do if it's not in cooperation with all other people? So we need to remember this. And we have an extraordinary mission, and God is blessing us. So I want to pray, and I'm sure that a lot of people is decided to open their heart to Jesus, and many of them are fervous with the fire to serve God, and for sure many of them will want to read the story of the Apostle Paul. You just read the act of the Apostle, and you will be on fire to serve God, and nothing will stop you. So I pray right now, dear God, for all the people that are alive with us, so they may be baptized in the fire if they haven't been yet. They be with the fire of God, that every day they may think in the life of the people that are out there. They have their ears open to the people that complain because of their lives, so that they can give Jesus to them, bringing to the home group, bringing to the church. And for you, Jesus, all honor and all glory for the privilege that you give us into being from Manai, to have a team of thousands and thousands of people in every part of the world to serve you and nobody else. Amen. Amen.